Once the dominant language of the Roman Empire, Latin was spoken across vast regions. But why and how did Latin disappear? Today, we explore the rise and fall of Latin and how it transformed into the languages we speak today. The rise of Latin. Latin was the official language of the Roman Empire, used in government, law, literature, and daily life. As Rome expanded, Latin spread across Europe, North Africa, and parts of the Middle East, becoming the lingua franca of a vast and diverse empire. However, as the Roman Empire began to decline, so did the widespread use of Latin. The fall of the Roman Empire. The fall of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century marked the beginning of Latin's decline. As Roman authority collapsed, the infrastructure that supported the uniform use of Latin, such as schools, administration, and the military, began to disintegrate. Without a central power to enforce the standard form of Latin, the language began to fragment. The emergence of regional dialects. As communication and travel became more localized after the fall of Rome, Latin evolved differently in various regions. These regional variations, known as Vulgar Latin, began to diverge significantly. Over time, these dialects developed into the distinct Romance languages we know today, such as Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, and Romanian. Each region adapted Latin to its own local customs, sounds, and influences, gradually creating new languages. The role of the Church. Despite the decline of Latin as a spoken language, it continued to thrive in the Christian Church. The Catholic Church preserved Latin as the language of the liturgy, theology, and scholarly communication throughout the Middle Ages. However, this was a formal, standardized version of Latin, distinct from the evolving spoken languages of the common people. Latin remained the language of educated elites, but it was increasingly disconnected from everyday speech. The Renaissance and Latin's last stand. During the Renaissance, there was a revival of interest in classical Latin. Scholars, writers, and thinkers of the time looked back to the ancient Roman texts and sought to emulate the language in their own works. Latin became the language of scholarship, science, and international communication. However, as education expanded and literacy rates increased, vernacular languages became more prominent, especially with the invention of the printing press, which made literature accessible to the masses in their native tongues. The decline of Latin as a living language. By the 17th and 18th centuries, Latin was no longer spoken as a native language. It remained in use as a scholarly and liturgical language, but even in these fields, its dominance waned as modern languages took over. Scientific works, previously written in Latin, began to appear in vernacular languages, reflecting the shift towards the languages spoken by the general population. The legacy of Latin. Though Latin as a spoken language disappeared, its influence is still felt today. The Romance languages are direct descendants of Latin, and many English words have Latin roots. Latin terminology is still used in law, medicine, science, and the church. The study of Latin also remains a key part of classical education, preserving a connection to the language that once ruled an empire. Are you fascinated by the history and evolution of languages? If you enjoyed this exploration of Latin's rise and fall, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Join us as we uncover more stories about the languages that shape our world.